This aka Dennis Cole, starting my live stream tonight. A couple minutes late, sorry. I am getting my act together. I apologize, but I'm going to use my inhaler just so I can be, if I can find it, my very low-tech way of doing this. Let's see. All right, I know it's in here. It's right there. Okay. Yeah. Asthmatic uses her inhaler. Film at 11. Okay, I'm ready. Sorry about that. My allergies are really bothering me today, so I wanted to use my inhaler as a preventative thing to maybe stave off coughing. I don't ever have to go to the hospital with my asthma, but I do get, I do start coughing and can't stop. So I am trying very hard to
Welcome back, sis.
do my live stream. Okay, so I've looked at that. What I need to do is go to goodness. I hope the inhaler is going to do the job. I may have to hit myself again with it. But what I am hoping to accomplish tonight is to do some cross-country championships, or at least one. So that's not cross-country. Let's look for cross-country, shall we? Okay, so I'm going to change my filter from all to cross-country and seasonal and see what we come up with. All right, so this one I believe is the one. Yeah, this is cross-country with love from Australia. So let's fast travel there and see what we can do. Whew. It's hard to do anything when you're disabled. Asthma is a definite disability. So let's find a team. And it starts in less than 30 seconds, which is good. So I will go and try to get some more skill points while I wait. I'm trying not to drown in my yuck. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Oh, the yuck is awful. But, phlegm happens. If you have asthma, you know what I'm talking about. So there will be a lot of throat clearing and maybe getting choked up tonight. I'm hoping that I won't have much of that. All right. With love from Australia. And I'm already in my baloo. So I'm going to stick with the Maloo. I'm not going to say anything during the song because I'm probably going to have to mute this and just cut the audio during this. It's not a copyright strike, but it is a copyright thing on YouTube. So that's a whole nother issue with live streamers and YouTube's propensity for demonetizing you if you have stuff like this. And here's the blue tea. He's got the Galaxy outfit. Hot dog. I love the Galaxy stuff. Alright. So let's do this with the Maloo. And so we've got Sloppy or Fiend, Toby, Nito, Mr. Badger, and Spanked Orphan. Okay. Alright. WGNet. Okay. Alright. Let's do it. Yay, Mr. Badger. And all of you. Oh, I don't want to hit my teammates. I want to pass the red guys. Yeah. I'm passing the red team. Trying to. Alright. We gotta, whoa, turn. Ah! Oh. Alright. We're trying. Whoa, pass that number 6. Pass him. Yeah, we passed him. And don't hit the rewind. For heaven's sakes, if you're doing a team thing, don't hit the rewind button. You will mess yourself up. Oh, I'm sideways. No. Oh, go. No. Pass number 7. Pass him, Granny. Pass. I command you. Pass him. Yes. Okay, the Maloo has done it. I have passed one of them. I'm going to try to pass more, because the more I can pass, the more points my team gets, and my team is dependent on me. Oh, Mr. Badger is in the number 1 slot. All right, Mr. Badger, yay! Whoa! All right, let's get over here. I got to do my part for my team. Okay, oh, number 7's trying to get past me. I hit the wall, which slowed me down. Oh, I gotta get through. Come on, go, turn. Ah, number 7 got past me again. I gotta pass him again, yeah. Yeah, I gotta get past these people. I gotta gain momentum. We gotta win against these unbeatable driver cars. Woo! The race is already about to end. But I am doing my best for my team. Oh, come on! Oh, I can't hit the Y button or I'll lose my place. So I'm just gonna do this. The finish line is there. Here I go. 9th place, not bad. We got 1150. They got 2,500. Oh no, they won. Oh well. Okay, but we're gracious. It's all right. We got another chance to redeem ourselves. But we got a 1st place. That is good. As long as we got a 1st place, we got a chance. Yeah. So we are in a good position. We just need more points. I need to pass more people. Got my Galaxy shirt on. All right. Glen Rock's Country. Alright, we're gonna do our best here. 100 points for every drive a car beaten. We've got to beat more drive a cars. Alright. Okay, WGNet. Alright, WGNet, go get them. And I'm going to try my best to thread my way through and get past some of these red guys. Yeah, got one. Alright, come on, let's go. Oh, doggone it. And I had to hit the rewind because I missed the gate. Oh, that's terrible. Alright, let's get this. Alright. Oh. Alright, let's pass some people. Whoa! Okay, good. We did. Good. Let's get it. Blue team is awesome. Let's get them, blue team. Let's get them. Go. Follow me, guys. We're gonna get them. Oh. I'm gonna get over. Oh, goodness. Oh. All right. I probably hampered a couple of members of my team just then. That's terrible. Oh, come on, blue team. Let's get them. We can do this. We can do it. Oh, get over. Yeah, get over. Okay. Let's get up there. Ooh. Oh. Up. And over. Whoa. All right. Let's get it. Over. Woo! Yeah. Okay, I'm not supposed to get wrecking ball while I'm in a race. Every time you hit something, you slow yourself down. So, don't want to do that. Oh, come on. The trick is with trucks, you have to hit the brakes to turn. If you don't, you will not turn. Oh, let's get it. Yeah, I passed him. All right, let's get this. Finish line is up there. Let's get to it. Yeah. All right. 7th place. Boy, I fought for it too. Whew. Mr. Badger, yay! And Stank Dorfin, 1 and 2. And we got 1450 and they got 2200. Oh, we won. We won. Yay! We won. All right, now if we can just win the 3rd time, we can win the championship. We can do this. We gonna do this. We are. All right, let's do this. Apologize for all the sinus stuff. It's an attack of the yuck. But anyway, quarry cross country. I like the quarry. There's several places that will trip me up, so I'm going to be extra careful not to use that rewind button because that really hurt us. Whew, okay. Oh, I love it. Spank Dorfin. All right. Man after my own heart with the Galaxy outfit. That is cool. All right, let's go. Go ahead, buddy. Yeah, go, buddies. Let's go. Yeah, let's go. Whoa. Here we go. Go, Toby. Woo-hoo. Go, Toby. Yeah. All right. Here we go. Oh. All right, blue, go blue, go blue. Blue team, yay! We can do it, we can do it. Let's pass these people. Let's pass these guys. They're unbeatable drivatars, but we're an unbeatable blue team, right? Right. Oh, whoa. Okay. Let's do that. Okay. Down here, and I gotta be straight up for this ramp. Yeah. All right. I got the ramp. I got the ramp. Oh, chewing up some fence. I shouldn't be. Oh, that hurt my speed. Oh, come on, girl. Don't hit anything. Don't hit anything, Granny. Don't hit anything. Let's just go straight. Straight and true like an arrow and turn around the turns. Yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. Good. All right. Good, good, good. We are getting it. I gotta catch up with these guys, though. If I don't gain some speed, I'm not gonna catch up. So we gotta get going. Cut corners when we can. And just up here, we have to kiss that flag and then get down. Oh, get down. Oh, come on. No, no, no. No, no, no. Get on the other side of that thing. Oh, come on. Oh. Bad mistake. That cost me seconds. This is a race where, oh, Toby, good guy. Go, Toby. Go, Toby. All right. Go, Toby. Yeah. Go, Toby. We're going to get it. We're going to get it. Yeah, keep going, Toby. Toby is faster than me. Maybe he has a chance to pass somebody. All right. Let's do this. Oh, 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 oh. Let's go, Toby. Let's go, Toby. Go. Yeah. Go, Toby. And, yeah, the other one up there. Go, go, guys. Yeah. Yeah. Go, Toby. Go, Toby. Go, Toby. You can do it. You can do it, Toby. Go, Toby. Woo. Okay. And Mr. Badger and Thankdorfin and Toby was 899. We got 1450 points. Oh well, but it's all right. We tried. We tried. Yeah, we tried. All right, there we go. I'll just skip through. All right. Okay. Well, I'm sorry, Blue Team. Public apology here, but we did our best. And congratulations to the top two on Blue Team for winning. Whew. So, how am I going to get cross-country championships? I don't know, but I think I need to just do all of the exhibitions and then we will be in good shape. So, let's find me a race, a cross-country race. Let's look for all the new ones, and yeah, new and cross-country, and what have we got? We've got There's several new things, but I don't see a new cross-country. Let's see, that's dirt racing, but it needs to be cross-country. That's probably not cross country. No. Mazda's Guide to the Galaxy. But okay. Any other cross countries? Wow. I can't do unbeatable drivatars. They always get me. There's the new one behind there. What is it? It's behind the playground one. What is it? Seasonal Playground and Bamberg Castle. Only $10 million. No. But no. Well, let's get rid of everything except cross country and just see if there's one that I can do that's not exhibition. They're all exhibition. I've already done exhibition. What do I have to do to get it? Let's see. Let me back up, zoom out, look again, see what the possibilities are. Well, all of them are exhibition completed, but I'm not getting any cross-country opportunities. It's like, why? Is there just one of these that maybe there is and I'm just not looking close enough? I'm kind of mystified as to how you get the, how you advance in this stuff. Well, I've done the exhibitions, so what does it take to move past exhibition? I'm not quite sure. If anybody knows, you could let me know. But anyway, I am still learning a lot about this game, and I've got a long way to go. So that's why I put beginner level on it, because I really don't know how you get invites to move beyond the exhibitions. I did all of the exhibitions that I see on here. I don't know if there's anything new, but let's try to get some guidance from the cross-country series. All right, I'm at tier 18. So I need to earn more influence to unlock tier 19. So maybe it's just doing more exhibitions until I get 30,000 influence, maybe? That might be a clue. All right, so I could see. Or I could go to the, well, My Horizon Life is not going to do it. I need to go to, let's see. Star card roster objectives, maybe? Win 5 different showcase remix events. Is there a showcase remix? Let's have a look. Is there? Of course, I can go over here and 3 cross-country circuit events. Okay, so and I've got to get the threading the needle skill, and I've got to get the combine drift and pass skills to earn 2 show-off skills. I need to do that too. Let's see. Can I get another perk? I have 2 available points. I can't get another one. So what do I do? Let's go back up here and go to the map. Oh wait, festival playlist. And 3 cross-country circuit events. All right, is that a cross-country circuit? Retro tourism? And that looks like cross-country, right? Or is it? All right, let's try it. Oh, that's dirt racing. It's dirt racing. It's not cross country. So how do I do this? Well, let's go do the dirt racing series. Maybe I'll think of something magically. You can always hope, right? Or I could run the cross-country one again after this and just see if I can possibly place. So, let's do this. All right, Retro Rally. I'm going to continue anyway. I don't think that it's going to help me any.
I've heard a lot of good things about this autumn championship. Suppose I'll be hearing more now that I know you've signed up.
I hope. All right, so what am I going to drive? Audi's not my thing. The Lancer Evolution is a good possible, but the Impreza 6.5. All right, I'm going to go with the Subaru. It did me good last time. So I'm going to go with the Subaru. And I'm not going to say anything important during this because I'm going to have to scrub the music from this. It's a shame, you know, before I started live streaming, I thought that it was okay to have game music in your live stream. Apparently, YouTube doesn't think it's okay, or they want to, you know, I'm not getting revenue, I'll be honest with you. But if I ever did want to, I would not want these copyright things run against me. So, you know, even though it's not a copyright strike and YouTube says it's not a copyright strike and Twitch says it's not a copyright strike, I still don't want that on my record that my ad revenue, which is non-existent, went to the producers of the music because they were they had a copyright claim. I don't want any of that on there. I really don't want anything, even innocent copyright claims. I really don't want that. So, you know, I'm like, I really don't want that. So, you know, I want my channel to be squeaky clean of copyright anything. So, there's my stance on copyright. I stand by U.S. copyright law. I used to work in a library. We dealt with copyright all the time. We had people wanting to copy things, and we had to supervise them and make sure they weren't copying like more than a tenth of the book. Because we were very, very careful about copyright issues. So, and being a science fiction writer, I am very, very careful of copyright. I have never plagiarized, nor will I. I wouldn't on principle. If I was writing a school paper, I made sure that my ideas were my own, or that I documented where my source was. I was very, very careful about that because all my life I heard about copyright. My mother and my sister were newspaper stringers, and they had to be careful of copyright. So I was definitely schooled on copyright and the dangers of plagiarism. And it's very easy to think that an idea is yours when actually it's something you read in a book or saw on the internet. So I advise all of you to think about copyright. Don't put yourself in the position, if you're in college or in high school or in middle school and you're doing papers, don't put yourself in the position of having to explain to the teacher, well, I just copied this off the internet. No, you can't do that. Anything is automatically copyrighted from the time it comes out of your pen. That includes your work, by the way. So, if you come up with an original idea, you don't want somebody using it and saying that they came up with it when you did. So, you want to give other people the same privilege. You don't want to use somebody else's ideas. Whether or not you agree with the way that our U.S. copyright laws are written. And other countries also have copyright things. For example, if you do genealogy, if you go to another country and you copy a source, you can't just put that on the internet for all your friends to have who may have relatives in your line. It's not that way. So you have to be careful of copyright and all sorts of things, even genealogy. So I think it was simpler back when you didn't have to worry about that from public sources when you're, I won, yay! So, I got one victory there. It's not going to count, but hey, it's cool. But, people need to be more aware of, you can't just download a photo off you can download photos off the internet. I do that all the time. But if you're going to put it in your blog, you're going to share it with your friends, then you're starting to make it public, and you need to have permission for that. Even if you're posting on Facebook, that is like a newspaper, and like a newspaper, anybody can see it, or maybe just your friends can see it, but that is considered public display. So you want to be careful about copyright. You don't want to just copy something over the internet and then maybe add something to it and put it on Facebook because you're doing a copyright infringement. And you might not think of that as being a copyright infringement, but it is. So be careful. Don't just copy things off the internet. If you're going to put it on another social media site, you have to have permission. Or just use your own picture. Use your own photographs. You don't have to use things that if somebody has a picture of a wild animal and you'll never go on a safari, I'm sorry for you, but you can't go taking that picture unless you write to the person who took the picture and say, can I use your picture? And sometimes they'll say yes, or they'll say, well, how much are you going to pay me for that? But there are free sources for pictures on the internet, and you got to be careful of them. But one good one that I use is Pexels.com, and you can, all of those have been released into the public domain. So if you download something from Pexels, it's a courtesy to give a tagline to the author saying this is where I got the photo from. But you can discredit Pexels.com. But, you know, that way you're using a legal source for your things that you're making memes out of or whatever. So definitely think about copyright, because it is important. It is important. You don't want to just use things indiscriminately, because just because it's on the internet doesn't mean you can use it. You may be able to use it for your own use or editorial use. Now, if you use something in a blog, you can claim editorial use. If you're commenting about the news or something. But you still have to be careful there, because there's some things that you can't claim editorial use on. So you got to know what you're doing. Personally, I wouldn't do it. I'm too scared of being sued, and I cannot afford a lawyer. So, you know, no. I'm going to be real careful if I put a photo. You know, I'm going to say what my source is and that I believe it to be in the public domain, and that doesn't necessarily protect me from a lawsuit, but it helps. But you don't realize that, you know, even if your intention is benign, if you have good intentions, you know, corporate lawyers are not going to look at you that way. So don't think that, well, I'm not trying to rip anybody off or make money off of this. A corporate lawyer might not see it that way. They might see you as an absolute crook. And it's a shame that they don't consider intentions, but they don't, because it's so pervasive. There are so many people who don't care if something's copyrighted. If they want to use it, they're going to use it. And then they get a DCMA warning, and it's like, uh-oh, it's real. It's big. Yeah. You have to be so careful. There was a theater company in Salt Lake that they did this wonderful play that was kind of poking fun at all of the major science fiction shows and movies, and unfortunately they had a Star Trek reference in it. And Paramount Studios has no sense of humor about that sort of thing. They, they sued the theater, and, you know, this play, for the first time, the theater company was in the black. And then they were back in the situation they were before, and worse, because they had to pay all this money to Paramount. And I did not think that the Star Trek reference was very obvious. You know, if you watched a lot of Star Trek like I have, you would recognize it, but it wasn't that obvious. You know, I just think they were just being jerks, because this was a small theater company that was just barely making ends meet to pay the rent on their theater. I mean, you know. I don't think they should go after the little guys, but that's just my opinion. On the other hand, if it's Star Wars, George Lucas, you know, lets fans do fan fiction all the time and all sorts of stuff like that. I think it's very neat that he does that. And if I ever became famous, I wouldn't mind fan fiction. I think it's very flattering for people to want to take your ideas and run with them. But certainly, you know, I wouldn't be like Paramount. For every little thing that's Star Trek, we're going to sue the heck out of you. You know, I don't agree with that. But, you know, we live in vicious times, especially since our last president. I didn't say that. But anyway, there's so much hate. We need to be a love planet. We need to love everybody. We need to try to, be good to each other and share the planet. There's room for all sorts of viewpoints and cultures and ways of believing, that we don't have to force everybody to just believe one thing. And oh my, I'm getting whipped here. I've got the pedal to the metal and they're just going. It's like, why? It's like all of a sudden they woke up and said, oh, I'm in a race. Whoa. Okay. Ooh, I'm getting creamed. But, it's a free country, and we should be free to express our ideas. But on the other hand, we should not be free to hate and mess up people's livelihoods and their, threats to their lives. That shouldn't be allowed to happen. And bullying should be a number one priority in the schools, to end bullying, because that's a basic human right. If that was an adult, you could take them to court. But because they're kids, they have no rights. I think kids in school, students, should have the same rights as an adult. And I think that OSHA should apply to school children, and in fact, since they're kids and not adult workers, I think it should apply double. I think every kid in school should get an hour for lunch, and they should have a chance to socialize. I think the number one problem in public schools, the reason that administrators saying, well, we're going to take away recess and we're just going to give them 5 minutes between class to get their books, I think that's ridiculous. You treat people like animals and you are going to get behavior problems. I think that most teachers are not very well versed in psychology, and child psychologists in schools are psychometrists. They are test givers. They are experimental psychologists. They are not clinical. I think that every kid in school should have access to a child psychologist who is certified in psychology, a certified clinical therapist, because kids have high suicide rates, and it's an epidemic in our schools. And all of this test giving, they know that there are problems with standardized tests. There are always biases towards white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. So if you fall outside of that in culture, then you are going to have problems with the test. So why do they do that? Why don't schools team up with psychologists to do what's best for our kids? A prime example is the time-tested thing of, well, if one person does something wrong, then we're going to punish the whole class. How is that fair? That is ridiculous. You should not punish the whole class for something that one person did. And who is going to rat on their friends? Really? You're punishing the whole class because nobody will speak out against their friends, and they know if they do, they're going to get bullied or worse. They might get physically injured. It happens all the time. Teachers should be aware of these things. They should not use techniques that are harmful in the classroom, psychologically harmful. They should be up with the latest psychology and not so much the latest, but tried and true methods for persuading students to do what you want. with respect. And you may say, well, they're just kids. They don't deserve respect. Yes, they do. And you would be surprised. There have been schools. I personally saw, I talked to a student at a high school in Atlanta that was student run. And I was very impressed at the maturity of this young woman as she talked about how the school worked and how the committees worked and how they handled misbehavior. They had a jury of their peers, and they, it sounded like a lot better than the public schools I grew up in. And I think that if we were to give kids more credit, I was a Girl Scout leader for 5 years, so I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I had kindergarten students. Now, you wouldn't think kindergarten students could make many decisions, but one of the main policies of Girl Scouts is if you have a troop, you let the girls lead. You brainstorm, and so, you have cookie money, and you have stuff like that. So if you're selling cookies and you've got an income and you've got a little savings account for these girls, you let the girls decide how they're going to spend their money. It's a radical idea, but it works. Even with kindergarten kids, the percentage of input that you give in, of course, a 5-year-old doesn't have any concept of how far $100 will go. So, you're not going to have a lot of great ideas from 4 or 5-year-olds, or 5. I had 5, including my daughter. But at the same time, you can still guide them to ideas that are feasible. And you don't just take over and say, well, we're going to do this with the money. But you you listen to their ideas and the kinds of things they want to do and say, okay, let's talk about this and see how far we can go with that. And you give them some real world examples of similar things that you could do. And basically, it is something the Girl Scouts have been doing for years, letting the girls decide how to spend their cookie money, and it teaches them things about the real world that are practical and apply in real life. So why can't you do that in schools? Why can't you say, okay, kids can come up with some really cool ideas. Why not let them govern themselves to a certain extent? You can't let them take over and have total chaos. You have to have ground rules. But basically what this school did was they decided to leave a lot of the governing details up to the students with great success. So I encourage you to look into some of the successes of certain private schools in student-led education, still going by the state guidelines and all, but having some flexibility in how it's administered. You would be surprised at the capabilities of a group of young people. We tend to not think of them as capable or as having valid opinions, but they really do. We should listen to young people more. We should listen to their wants and needs, and public schools are generally failing in that respect. My apologies if you're a teacher or you're involved in education, but I really don't think that our school system works. I think it is broken and needs to be fixed. And I think the first thing I would start with, if I was a school administrator, I would make recess mandatory. you may say, oh, but we have fights and we can't have that going on. Well, why do you have fights? Do you teach good communication as far as child psychologists would recommend in your school? If you're not, you're really failing these students. People need to learn how to resolve conflicts besides using their fists. And if you're not teaching that in your school, then no wonder you have fights. You need to give students a chance to talk at lunch and not be rushed. Obesity is an epidemic in our country. And a lot of it is we are teaching kids to finish their meal in 15 minutes. That's not healthy. Any gastroenterologist will tell you you should never rush a meal. So you need to be careful about that. You need to be sure that you are providing an environment that teaches children to get along with each other. And the first and foremost thing is they need to know how to communicate without name calling, without racial slurs, without insults. They need to learn how to really listen to each other and respond in a diplomatic way. And if you're not teaching this in your school, that's why you have so many fights. So I'm saying, I know it's complicated to run a school. I think it's a daunting task. You've got diverse students, you've got different cultures, but I think you should embrace different cultures, not be so phobic against, one group or another group, or, imposing your religion on other people. I think that we need to have freedom, the same basic freedoms that any United States citizen has. Freedom of religion, freedom of political views, freedom of speech, freedom of, to say your body is your own and not have somebody violating you, and I'm not saying that schools violate people's bodies, but if you are doing searches and you are having police and dogs sniffing at lockers for drugs and stuff like that, what's wrong with your school? Are you not teaching people to be law-abiding citizens? Are you not teaching them to communicate? Are you, because crime in the school is a serious matter. But it's also serious if you're treating students unfairly and you're becoming a Gestapo state. Excuse me, I don't think that should happen in America. I think we should have school psychologists who are really psychologists, clinical psychologists, not test givers. And I think we need to do away with all this testing anyway. Regular tests like teachers give, that's different. But these standardized tests are biased against people of color, people of different cultures, and immigrants who are just learning the United States stuff. It's really discriminatory against them too. They may come from a totally different culture than we have in the United States. So, and we really aren't one country, one belief, everybody doesn't believe the same thing. So these biases are going to come across in those standardized tests. You're expecting people to have one worldview and, all this stuff, and that's not the case. So any standardized test is bound not to measure what you're trying to measure. So why all the benchmarking? We are not business. Our students are not business people. They're not little adults, and they're not going to act like adults. So why do we treat them like American businesses And we have all these management things and benchmarking and got to see results and all this. Do away with that. It's not working. And it's just hurting the kids. You know, if you're going to have quality schools, the first thing you need is to hire more teachers. It is ridiculous to have a 35 student limit like we have here in Georgia. You know, county-run schools, I don't agree with it, because if you have county-run schools, you got this county at this stage in the school year, you've got this county and another stage. You move across the county border and your kid may be ahead or he may be behind. If he's behind, that's a big problem. You know, why have all of the disparity? Have all the schools in the state on the same page. Don't grab at every theory of education and think, oh, we'll abandon this method and we'll go with this method. And then the parents can't help the kids because they learned a different method. You know, and my big thing would be to abolish the requirement for algebra, both in public school and in college. If people need algebra, they can take it and they can get it quickly. There is no need to put students through algebra who will never solve another algebra problem when they graduate and get a job. I think it's ridiculous, and I think that one subject is responsible for a lot of our high school dropout rate. You know, it's ridiculous. We need to make school fun for students again. I noticed that Sonny Perdue is running for the education post at our state. I totally disagree with this. He was one of the ones that took all the joy out of schools by saying we couldn't have but one holiday a month celebrated in the schools, that kids should be working. This is a man who has no experience in the field of education at all, and he wants to be, I think it's chancellor of the university system. It doesn't make any sense. He may have been governor, but I don't think he was a very good governor. But, you know, that's just my opinion. But I think that if we're going to have quality schools, we need to have quality education. And the first and foremost thing would be to teach kids a little psychology. Teach them good communication techniques. Teach them to treat each other with respect, and teachers should treat them with respect. You know, if everybody's respecting everybody and listening, truly listening to people, but how can you listen to 35 voices at once and you're just one teacher? It's unfair to the teacher. And a lot of teachers get burned out and they leave the school system. So it's a systemic problem. We need to hire more teachers. We need to lessen the workload on our teachers. We need to, you know, computers can help with the learning process, but you still need a human person to help when they can't get it from the computer. Teachers do more than teach facts. They develop relationships with their students if they're allowed to have enough time to do that. You know, a teacher may be a surrogate parent when there's trouble in the home. Teachers do a lot more than teach. So why do we have business people who want schools run like a business with benchmarking and all of this statistics gathering and trying to put all of these constraints on education when what kids really need is to learn to get along with each other and with authority figures? Now, that is the most important lesson that any student will ever learn in school. So I think it's ridiculous that we are wanting to have preschools in schools, that we're teaching them to work hard and make good grades. Really? You know, kids under 10 need socialization. Any child psychologist will tell you this. So you don't have to take my word for it. Go look up some studies. Go on the U.S. Department of Education website and look up some studies. Children before the age of 10, you repeat all the lessons, the same thing, kindergarten through third grade, because they're not really ready to absorb that yet. They can learn rote facts and figures, sure, but that doesn't prove that they're getting anything out of it. Until they're in fourth grade, they're not ready to learn. School needs to be fun. It needs to be a safe place. And that means no bullying. We need to teach kids how to get along with each other, how to, resolve conflicts without hitting or spitting or kicking or any of that stuff. We need to teach them not ever to use racial slurs or to make fun of somebody because they dress differently or they talk differently or they walk differently, or, we need to teach them to appreciate differences in individuals. And if we teach them to be kinder and gentler to each other, I think teachers will have an easier time as well. And with the prevalence of attention deficit disorders and with autism on the rise, and you've got more likelihood that kids will have psychological problems after COVID, teachers need help. They can't do their job if they're having to teach to these tests, which are really unfair anyway, and they see some students falling way behind. And there have been lots of studies that confirm that if you hold a kid back a grade, it affects them their whole life long. Maybe once in first to third grade doesn't make that much of a difference, but in the upper grades it makes a very big impact on everything, including their self-esteem. And I say to you that the self-esteem of the average middle school student is on the floor. We need to do something about this. We need to stop bullying in its tracks. We need to concentrate more on socialization than we do on book learning. We need to give kids life skills on how to get along with people, how to accept differences, how to, if we want world peace, it starts at home, and it starts early. We need to teach good communication skills. We need to teach kids not to resort to name-calling, racial slurs, or making fun of people's beliefs. We need to teach tolerance, because we are a melting pot here in America. We have a lot of different cultures here. There's room for all of them. All we need to do is make sure that we're starting young and we are teaching kids that it's okay to be different. We are all individuals and we are all different. We also have a lot of things in common. And we need to look for those things in common so that it doesn't seem so foreign that somebody's Muslim and they kneel and pray 5 times a day. Is that such a big deal for school systems? Allow Muslims to pray. Allow prayer in the schools. Allow Christians to pray before tests. It was really a bad thing for my daughters that they weren't allowed to pray before their tests. So I say to you, we need to think about the philosophy of education. we are trying to prepare kids for an adult world. We need to make sure that we are giving them the tools they need to survive. And one of the best tools is healthy communication. And it needs to extend from the school to the family. You know, if a family has an abuse problem, we shouldn't just say, oh, that's a bad parent. We should have an education program for the parent as well, to show them that, hey, there's a better way to live. And, you know, I'm not saying it should be forced, it should be voluntary. I'm not saying that we should, you know, make all these radical changes and the school should be like the police. No. But I think the school should be a friend to the community. And I think that, you know, the social workers and the school systems and the child psychologists and the medical community should all be united together to help children. And I feel very strongly about this. You know, I have scars on my psyche from the way I was treated in public school. And, you know, I had so many problems with the local school system that I pulled my younger daughter out and homeschooled her, and I'm very glad I did. So, you know, I have some radical views. Yeah, I would take all the kids from pre-K to third grade and put them in the auditorium, get them in groups of similar interests. I would have them cooperating together. I would have them being taught about how to resolve conflicts, how to resolve anger. I would teach them that emotions are friendly, and how to express those emotions without hurting their peers. You know, there's all sorts of things that are big topics in psychology, and the number one is communication. They should teach basic, healthy communication in schools. And they should teach that to the parents as well, so the parents can benefit. There are a lot of parents that have never been able to be in therapy, and they've got some unresolved issues. What better place than the school system to offer help to these parents? Not forced help, not requirements that disagree, you know, because if you're a parent and you have a certain belief system, you want your kids to have that belief system, right? So I'm not trying to take rights from parents. I believe that the parents should be the ultimate one in control of their kids' education. But at the same time, I think that if you want less fights in the schools, if you want kids that are more obedient to their teachers, if you want to have more order in your classrooms, you have to start early and teach these coping techniques to little kids. You got to teach them communication, because if they don't know how to communicate, they are not going to succeed when they get a job and they've got to give a presentation to a team. So you do have a lot more teamwork in schools, and that is a good trend. But we need to go further than that. We need to teach conflict resolution. You know, I will never forget, I was in Votech school, and I was in a group with this woman who obviously wasn't mature enough to be there. I was the leader of our group. The teacher of our class made me leader of the group, and this girl was not having any of it. And I was trying to talk to people and get their opinions, and she just wanted to give her opinions and have them be it. And I got so frustrated that I went to the bathroom and cried. And my friends from the class came and, you know, asked me what was wrong, and, you know, they were agreeing with me. They were saying, you know, I was saying, well, what's wrong with me? And
Really?
they were, thank you.
You're welcome.
And they were saying, it's not you, it's her. You know, it was pretty obvious what she was doing. But, here's somebody that could have benefited from some group work at school and some good communication techniques. And, it's sad when they get to the adult level and they're still functioning on the level of a 5-year-old. Very sad. So I'm saying we should teach these communication techniques very young. And then we wouldn't have the conflict in schools and the bullying that we have in middle school. If we teach it in elementary school, then hopefully by middle school we'll see some positive change and see some suicide rates go down, and later in high school see the dropout rate go down. Because public schools as they are right now are toxic. And it really, you have some wonderful individual teachers. You have a lot of good teachers in the schools who can't shine because of those standardized tests. I think a teacher should not be judged because of the scores on those standardized tests. That's not a function of how well she teaches. It's a function on how well the test communicates with people of different cultures. And that is not going to work. It's just not going to work. And the people who put out these tests are getting rich. It all goes back to, we should teach basic education, reading, writing, and arithmetic. Instead of algebra, let's just have business math. People should know how to balance their checkbooks. They should know how to figure out simple interest. They should have education on how to get a loan and how to improve your credit scores. They don't need how to work out a quadratic equation. How often do I in my life use quadratic equations? I haven't done one since college. It's really a useless skill. So why do we force everybody in high school and college to take algebra when very few of us need it? Yeah, if you're a high-level manager, you might need some calculus. But you can learn it as you need it. You don't need to learn it in high school because you're probably going to have to take it all over again anyway. If you look at the rates of, if you look at the grades of people in college in algebra classes, and you see where the majority of them are, falling. Why do we do this to our students? I don't understand it. It goes back to at the turn of the century, we started saying, the Greeks were so smart. If we cram our kids full of this information that the Greeks had, they'll be smarter and they'll have higher grades. Well, that didn't work out so well. But they had, when my mother was in school, she had to take Latin. And she didn't use it. She was a nurse. She used a little of it, but she learned what she needed in nursing school. She didn't really need the Latin course that she took in high school. It didn't make her smarter. She was smart to begin with. So we've come a long way since the turn of the century, but in some ways we are still doing the same harmful things. So I'm saying, why do we teach things like that? Now, I think it's good to have a basic understanding of chemistry. I think it's good to have a basic understanding of how science works. But as far as the high-level stuff, why don't we save that for the college-bound students? If somebody is not planning to go to college, why do we force them into college? Because studies are showing now that the demand for education is not for college educated students. It's for the skilled trades, plumbers, electricians, people who can build houses. So why are we spinning our wheels trying to compete with the Japanese? If you look at suicide rates in Japan, they are very high in schools, just like they are here. And I think a lot of it is the emphasis we put on really scholarly subjects, like algebra and calculus. Why do we teach calculus in high school? If you're going to be a high-level manager and you're doing market analyses and stuff like that, you might need algebra and calculus. But the average person is not going to use it. And you lose it very quickly. It's very hard to get it, and it's very hard to keep it. That's why I think that you should not have things required that are fleeting like that. Foreign languages are more practical, but really, I wanted to study German, and I didn't know anybody from Germany, and I didn't have anybody to practice with. So, foreign languages are also something that is fleeting, but it's good to be exposed to it, because even though you lose vocabulary, you tend to keep the grammar rules. It's very good to have a little exposure to foreign languages. So I agree with that being a requirement. The one thing I would strike from the required list is algebra, and including calculus, trigonometry. I would keep geometry. That's practical. If you're going to buy a plot of land, you need to be able to calculate areas. So I agree with geometry. I don't agree with algebra. So that's my opinion. And if you want to discuss that, please feel free to put comments on my Twitter, and I'll be happy to. My Twitter is Danistories, DANNISTORIES. Feel free to contact me on Twitter, and you may argue the point, and I might give you some websites to look at to back up my point of view, and I will read whatever you want me to read, But I really would like to connect with some teachers and see what they think, because education is important, and teachers have such an influence on their young students' lives. It's important that the government step back and let teachers teach. I don't think that we should have so much standardized testing. When I had it in 8th grade, I had test anxiety, something terrible. I had NEDT testing in 7th and 8th grades and again in 10th grade, and I was scared to death. It's intimidating to have standardized tests, and some of the things were from left field. It's when those standardized tests have a lot of word problems, or they have you read something and tell what you got out of that. That's very subjective, and you're trying to measure that objectively. I think it's a fail. I really do, because how are you measuring how well kids comprehend an article? If they're simply not interested in the subject, how much are they going to comprehend from it anyway? I think schools should cater more to students' interests. If somebody is very, very interested in social issues, let them talk to a social worker. Let them have experiences, in the community. I think the school and the community should be closer tied together. I think schools should be smaller. I think that each community should have its own little schoolhouse. And that way you've got less students in one area, you've got maybe smaller classes. You are going to have advantages to people going to school near where they live. Maybe they can just walk to school instead of having to ride a bus. You know, we need to organize our communities better. We need to have work near where people live. We need to have, you know, schools where people live. We need to have closer knit communities. You know, all this huge schools. I went to a school with 1,000 people. I think that's ridiculous to have a school that size. Now, if there are classes you want that you can't get, there's always virtual learning, right? So why have giant schools that you have to travel a long way to get to? Why can't you have neighborhood schools and have quality education? I think that any school that gets income should have to contribute to a state fund, and that fund gets distributed equally among all the schools in the state. I think it's ridiculous that in rich neighborhoods, schools have all these fancy things that all schools don't have. It's not fair. It's very, very, you know, if you're going to have that, why can't all schools have a nice athletic program? Why can't all schools have a nice band? Why can't all schools have a nice building where everything works? You know, I don't think it's right that rich neighborhoods have the fancy schools and poor neighborhoods have the junk schools. You know, you need to have equal, not equal but separate, but equal education. And it starts with money. You need to pay a teacher enough that she's not spending $400 a year on things for her classroom because she doesn't get enough money from the school system. It's ridiculous. You know, all the needs of the teacher should be supplied by the school. And by the same token, the needs of the student should be supplied by the school system. If, you know, if a school wants uniforms and parents can't pay for those, we had year-round school in our neighborhood school when my daughter was in 4th grade. And I really liked the year-round school. The rich parents didn't like it because they couldn't go off to Europe for a month. I mean, they could have, but they said it wasn't enough time for them and they wanted to have 9-month school. Well, if you have 9-month school, you spend the first 6 weeks in review of last year because the kids have forgotten over the summer. Why do that? We had these nice week-long breaks between quarters. It was wonderful because we would get some time off, and we didn't have to eat peanut butter all summer long because of the cost of daycare. My cost of daycare was 2/3 of my rent. So, you know, it was horribly expensive, and I just had one kid in daycare. I knew a lot of people who had 4 kids in daycare, and they weren't eating. You know, it's awful that, you know, there's so many things wrong with public schools. Another thing is money for attendance. I have B positive blood. They found out during COVID that people with A and B blood don't have as strong of an immune system as people with AB or O blood. And O blood is the most common blood type in our country. Why do we base work and school and everything on attendance? I did excellent work, but I was out a lot. And that went against me in so many ways. When I was in junior high, I was missing 30 days of school year because of illness. And then I had friends who never missed school. But it's not fair to think that handicapped people can have the same bar as people that are perfectly healthy and don't have any disabilities. PE was a major trial and traumatic to me. Most kids enjoy PE and they like being on a ball team or whatever. I had no chance of getting on a ball team. I had no talent and I couldn't develop any because my health was so bad. Is that fair? Schools should be flexible. They should tailor education to the student and they should fill the student's needs. And if you are getting government money because of attendance, you're going to have discrimination against disabled people. Just saying. That's why I think the whole system needs to be revamped. We need to have better ways of handling things. I'm looking for my next race, and I'm not sure where it is. Maybe I finished it. I think I did. But, I could get on my soapbox and talk all day about public schools and what they need to do differently. And I think Georgia, this is my state, I think it's one of the worst states as far as schools go. I have had kids in school in Georgia, Tennessee, and Utah. I don't have a high opinion of Tennessee schools either. But I haven't been in a city in Tennessee. I was in rural Tennessee. And they fussed at me for printing out excuses on my computer. And by the way, they were too long. Well, I'm a wordy person. And I couldn't understand that attitude. Most schools want to have contact with parents. All the schools that we'd had up until that time, they had PTA. This school had PTSO, which was not as good as PTA in my opinion. And they really they wanted parents to just stay away from the school and let them do their own thing. And I didn't agree with that. I wanted to be involved with my kids' education. So I think schools need to consider parents' opinions. So many times I've had conflict with the school over what kind of movies they were showing my kid. She was having nightmares. That's serious, Why can't a parent have a voice about things like that? Why can't a parent tell the school, look, you're teaching this, I don't like this. In 5th grade, my daughter was required to read a book that had cuss words in it. And we are an LDS family. In the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we do not cuss. We do not read things with cuss words. We do not watch things with cuss words. I went round and round with the school and the daycare center because I didn't want my child exposed to that, but yet I had no voice. This is another reason that I think schools should be state-controlled instead of county-controlled, so that you can have protections in place if you've got a child who is different in some way, so you can have some changes so that you have a voice as a parent. I'm sure that there are a lot of issues that, I've talked to a lot of parents of disabled children. And there's been a lot of complaints that parents I've known have had about the treatment of their disabled children. One mom had a little boy with a terminal condition. Okay, his muscles were wasting away. It was muscular dystrophy. He was not expected to live past his teens, and he didn't. And he had a coach who was saying, oh, you can get a job someday. All you need to do is exercise and build those muscles. This coach was ignorant. He did not listen to the child's medical experts. He wasn't talking to the physical therapy people. He wasn't involved in any way with the child's professionals that were helping him. And he was going against the doctor's orders, and in fact, he increased the muscle wastage on this poor boy because of encouraging him to overdo and giving him false hopes about having a job. You know, I know a lot of people are fans of coaches and sports programs in schools, and I think they're great for healthy people, but I think that coaches should be required to take some courses that EMTs take. I think that they should learn about injuries and how they can give children disabilities. I think a lot of coaches are totally ignorant of the physical concerns that a parent might have if their child is playing sports and the child is told no pain, no gain, which has been disproven scientifically. You don't want to give children disabilities. And the amount of homework before the advent of books on an iPad, for example, at schools or on a tablet, kids were having to carry all these heavy books, and some of them were being, pediatricians were saying that they were seeing injuries to kids' backs and necks like slaves hundreds of years ago had. Stooped backs and problems from carrying loads that were too heavy. If you have a kid and they weigh 100 pounds, they should not be carrying more than 10 pounds, period. And those books probably weighed a lot more than that. So we need to be careful what we do about our children, and ignorance in school systems is no excuse. These are supposed to be educated people teaching our children, right? So there ought to be some basic standards for especially anybody who is in sports. They need to be well versed on when not to make somebody play in a game. Winning is not as important as the child's risk of disability. So we need tighter standards on things like that. And a lot of schools are discontinuing sports programs because of the cost of insurance. But what they ought to consider is the human cost of all these students who are cross-training year-round, and they're getting more sports injuries than they used to. So, yeah, I have a lot of problems with school sports. I would not abolish them because, there's risk in anything that's worthwhile, right? So I believe that choice is up to the kid, the coach, and the parent. But I think there should be some minimum standards that a coach should be required to have a first aid course, and they should be required to know when they, be advised by a pediatrician, by the way, whether they can put the student in with this suspected injury, and especially head injuries have been ignored. A lot of lawyers are, have been for years, saying that even if you don't get knocked out, there can be permanent consequences to a head injury. And where do you get most of the head injuries in schools? From sports. So we need to have a look at that. We need to have the medical community of the community around the school involved in sports programs. We need to make sure that our coaches know what they're talking about. If they say, oh, you can play through that, just ignore the pain and play through it. I don't think any pediatrician is going to say that. So, you need to have some, and this is going to cost. But, when I had my house, I didn't make enough to pay taxes, but yet I was paying property taxes. So definitely I was a taxpayer then. I was paying school tax. And I wouldn't have minded if the local school had had some medical professionals on their staff. We did not even have a school nurse. I think that there should be school nurses in all schools, not just rich schools. My opinion. We need to have access to psychologists, and now that we have telemedicine, it's a lot easier to get that access. We need to make sure that every person in the country can have mental health care if they need it. We are a country where medical care depends on how rich you are or how good your job is, or, we don't have a lot of options for poor people. And, 70% of us live paycheck to paycheck. Why shouldn't there be more services? And, as far as you 30%, you are still paying through the nose for what you get. We are building mental health jails because there's so many mentally ill people in jail. Mentally ill people don't belong in prison. If they're not cognizant of what they're doing, is it fair to say that, oh, they're criminals, they need to be locked up and throw away the key? I think that we need mental health facilities again, like we had before 1980 when Reagan said, oh, we've got too many abuses going on in mental health facilities, we need to just do away with them. No, we need smaller mental health facilities, and we need more of them, because Congress decided to end the mental health hospitals because they were costing a lot, but they didn't want to spend money on community things that were supposed to be in place when they did this. So they just dumped these mentally ill people out on the street, and they're still on the street. And the homeless population is growing by leaps and bounds because that 70% that live paycheck to paycheck, a lot of them can't afford apartments, so they're still working. Half of the homeless work. They're not shiftless bums like some political people would have you believe. They are average people like you and me that lost a job and they lost their home, and they're homeless temporarily maybe to save up enough money for deposits, or they've just given up and decided, well, I'm just going to live on the street because I can't afford anything. And there are a lot of people coming to that decision and deciding to make it a permanent life change. We need housing that is affordable. Only 30% of people in this country can afford a house. It used to be that it was over half. And in my state, I'm on Medicaid. I had a house, but I couldn't leave it to my daughter if I died, because the state of Georgia decided that if you have Medicaid, you have to give your house to the state. I think it's outrageous, and I think it targets poor people, and, people of color are more likely to be poor. Why? It's so much injustice. Why? I don't see it. I want to see a country where all of us can have a home. And why can't we have tiny homes? If you go on your county website, go to your county zoning department, and just take a look at your zoning requirements. under how big a house has to be, usually it's 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. The median price for a home in this country is about $350,000. The payment on that would be horrendous. My house was a $45,000 house. My payment was $450, and it was probably that low because of Georgia Dream program, which I was on. Now you figure, my check is about $955 a month. I get Social Security. I was disabled, so it was Social Security disability. This year I will be 63 in September, but last year in September, I passed the border of 62, and my disability automatically went into just regular retirement. It's the same amount of money. But consider that, I'm paying half of my income for my place to live. You're supposed to pay maybe 33% of your income for housing. So there needs to be government assistance so people can have a house, because the cost to taxpayers to build mental health jails, really? You could take that money and you could put it into mental institutions, and you could have small community mental health facilities. And I know everybody says, not in my backyard. But that's the answer. If you've got a person that has to be institutionalized, don't you want to be physically near them? Do you know if your Auntie Martha has to go in a nursing home, she might have to go in a nursing home in somewhere way away from you? This is what a lot of people don't know. There's lots of nursing homes. You can't hardly throw a stone without hitting a nursing home. But yet, the people in the nursing home are not local. I think there ought to be a law against having facilities ship people off to another county or maybe even another state because there's not an opening right then at the local one. Why can't they put these people where their relatives are instead of putting them in a nursing home where they have no family nearby and there's no supervision on the owner of that nursing home? I really have a problem with this. I was in a nursing home for 6 months. I did not belong there because I am not nursing home territory, but I am about where I am now. I need a care aide to come in, but I couldn't get that. So going in a nursing home, this was before I won my disability case. So I went in a nursing home. And it was a nice nursing home. The staff were really good. The administration was really good. I talked to the owner. I really liked the way it was run until I lived there. Then I saw that, I was getting meds that I needed to have at 10 o'clock in the evening. The practical nurse who was giving out the meds would get to me about 2 in the morning. This is unacceptable, but there was one nurse to the entire 400-bed nursing home. And a lot of nursing homes have gone to 3 in a room. If you have 3 patients in a room, my care aide tells me, you cannot get a Hoyer lift in there. You have to lift the person with your back. And certified nurse assistants like my care aide are getting back problems every day because they can't use a Hoyer lift. Now, a Hoyer lift is a machine that lifts a person. Also, you have the obesity problem. Most elderly people that maybe they have a stroke and get paralyzed, or they have other health problems that they're too weak to move their bodies. I weigh 230 pounds. Now, I'm just telling you, if somebody had to deadlift me, they're going to hurt their back. So you have families who, we don't have room for a Hoyer lift in this bedroom. Well, what do you expect the poor care aide to do? Get a bad back from lifting your person? We need to reform nursing homes and facilities. We need to make sure that we're doing good background checks on these people. If they're taking care of your relative, you care. If you don't have a relative in that situation, it's easy to say, oh, they're fine. They're not fine. Anything state-run is not fine. And even though they are privately owned, they're financed by the state. And whoever has the lowest price gets the money. And this is a pervasive problem with every state. There should be a basic standard for quality of care instead of just taking the cheapest contract, because the place they're going to cut corners is on staff. They're not going to hire enough people, and the people that are there are getting back problems right and left. So, that's my 2 cents on nursing homes. I would rather die than go back in a nursing home. That's my opinion. So, I am hoping that somebody will hear me. I feel like a voice crying in the wilderness. Nobody's listening to me at all. But I hope that somebody will decide that these things are important. We need to have professionals in the schools, not test givers. We need to have nursing homes that are safe places for the residents. The nursing home I was in, the relatives wanted to be able to come in up to 9:30 at night. Well, it gets dark, in some times of the year, it's dark at 5 o'clock, and here you are with a nursing home. And there were people coming in who were going after the pain patches of people in comas. And I was terrified they were going to come in my room and try to get me. It's terrifying. Because they were too cheap to hire a security guard. So there was no security guard. The door was just open, anybody could walk in. And this was in a relatively safe neighborhood in Salt Lake City. Now, I'm telling you, this is horrible. And there's a story I'm very well familiar with of a lady who had to have her leg amputated. So she went in a long-term care facility for, it's going to be 3 months. Well, they didn't put a pad under her bed. She had dementia that advanced very quickly. And here she was, maneuvering herself off the bed because she was just not in her right mind, and falling on the floor and getting horrible bruises on her face. And, it may have been from falls, it may have been from some staff that was abusing her, we never found out. But she was our friend, and it was horrible. She didn't have family to look after her. And so she died in that nursing home. She was going to be my roommate. I was very, very upset. And things like this, stories like this, happen every day. It doesn't even make the news, because news is unusual things, not things that happen routinely. Everybody talks about nursing homes, and we need to reform them, and this, that, and the other, but it takes money to reform. It takes money to take care of people, and it's horrible how much it costs. We have more health costs in this country than any other country in the world. We have very good care if you can afford it. If you can't afford it, you get second-class care, and we have dismal survival rates of infants among people of color. It's ridiculous that you have to pay for good care to get it. There's a lot of things that government could fix if government would, but a lot of the people we have in government right now don't want to do anything about it. It's like, well, it's always been this way. No, it hasn't. It's mainly because of the push to make government more like a business. I tell you, government should be service-oriented, not business-oriented. We need to have people who care about people.
Okay, sis. Plotting your route to the Fortsathon live event now.
We need to consider human life as precious and do what we can to preserve it. We don't need to be letting people die on our streets. Do you know that people die on the streets every day, and it does not make the news because it's not unusual? And a lot of the time they can't even identify them. A lot of times their people don't even know they're there. We need to have a way of identifying people. But more than that, we need to have housing so people can live. We don't need to have a homeless population. It probably costs your local government more money to go in and clean up periodically in these camps, and every city has one. If you think your community doesn't have a homeless camp, go ask somebody. Go in the parking lot at Walmart to the inn nearest the street. Wherever, a lot of Walmarts allow overnight parking, which is refuge for women who are being abused, by the way. And a lot of communities don't want homeless hanging around the Walmart parking lot, so they fight against this. But it's a blow against women, because when a woman gets abused, sometimes the only thing she can do is go and sleep in her car. But if there are these ordinances against people parking in their cars and sleeping overnight, then where is an abused woman going to go? Shelters can't just take somebody on the spur of the moment. If you want to get in a homeless shelter, you better call 2 weeks in advance. Who knows that they're going to be homeless 2 weeks in advance? I ask you. If you get evicted and you're on the street, and you may say, well, they're evicted, they're criminals. No, not necessarily. A lot of times it's just because somebody lost a job. That's not a crime. And if you are living paycheck to paycheck, that's the risk. Homelessness is a very real and big risk. You can end up homeless, have nowhere to go because maybe you don't have relatives. Not everybody has relatives that will take them and their kids. Do you know half of the homeless are people with children? And they're living out in the street catching awful diseases. Public schools don't even have a way to tabulate homeless children. They might not even know that a child is homeless because clothes are easy to get. So, if somebody's depressed and they're not taking care of their personal hygiene, they might just give up on trying to look nice or trying to, you know, a lot of people get hopeless. And there are a lot of mentally ill people on the street. A mentally ill person is not going to think rationally, or maybe they've got outbursts that make them unemployable. What are you going to do about people like that? You know, or people that just through no fault of their own, they lose a job and them and their children are homeless. You know, it is cheaper to solve the problem of homelessness than it is to go have these cleanups. You have to have more police, and you have to have a company come in who specializes in cleaning up after
Forces
the
on the line,
homeless.
starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Go!
Round 1 started!
All right. So, social ills are complicated. That's
Turn
why
right.
we haven't solved them yet.
In 100 meters,
It's not simple.
left.
It's not just a matter of, oh, these people are lazy. Half of them are working. That's not lazy. They're still going to a job day after day. They haven't just decided to sit on the street and be, you know, just be idle. Most people that I talk to in DFACS waiting rooms and disability, Social Security waiting rooms, they were not happy about taking money from the government. They all felt shame. I feel shame at having to live off the government. It is not easy. And any crook who thinks, oh, it's easy to get Social Security and be on disability. No, it's not. They make it as hard as possible. I've known people who were dying who could not get disability. Now, there's something wrong with that picture. You know, and if somebody's mentally ill, that can be just as disabling as a physical disability. So again, I say, don't judge. You know, if you see somebody and you find out they're on disability, oh, that person shouldn't be on disability. Who asked you? You know, are you a medical person? Are you familiar with their case? You know, making a snap judgment like that is dangerous. There have been people who have lost their apartments because somebody said, oh, this person shouldn't be disabled. I'm going to call the fraud line. And then they get investigated. And while the investigation is going on, they cut off your benefits. That's proving you guilty before you've had a trial or anything. It should be illegal. You know, if you are being investigated for fraud, don't cut off the paycheck while you're investigating. What if you find out that they're not doing fraud and they've lost their apartment and you're not going to pay them back that money? So, you know, why take a person's income lightly? And we've been doing that for years. There are homeless people that
Round
never
one
got
complete.
off the street
Get to round 2!
because
turn around
Of
when it is safe to do
not
so.
having basic income. There's a lot of talk about universal basic income, and I am all for it. The idea is to give people some money so that they can supplement their income and they can afford a place to live. Compared to the costs of homelessness, it's not that much. You know, if you want to spend less money in government, it is often simply more cost-effective to just give people some money than to have to deal with the costs of them being homeless. Because cleaning up those encampments is not cheap, and your city has to pay for that. So there ought to be federal funding to put these people in homes. You know, all the time there is land that sits fallow because somebody died and there's no relative to take care of that land. Why can't they say that, you know, if land is not upkept, then it is seized by the city and turned into housing for the homeless?
Turn around when it is safe
know?
to do so.
And it wouldn't be that expensive when you consider that you can build a tiny home for $25,000. You know, and then a person has a lockable place to keep their belongings and a place to live. Maybe you have a public shower on the premises so they can clean up. You have social services tied in so that they can get jobs. Or if they're disabled, they can get the services they need to survive. You know? It's important that we take care of our poor. And not all of them are disabled and unable to work. A lot of them are able to work and willing. They just need a job or they just need a place to operate from. There are psychological implications on people and their children from homelessness. It is a mental health problem. Because if you're mentally okay before you're homeless, you're not going to be after you are. Because it's traumatic to lose your home. It's like being through a fire. If you've ever talked to anybody who's a victim of a fire, you lose everything. And a lot of these people that are homeless have lost everything. So, you know, and then they gather bottles and cans to try to feed themselves. Maybe their ID gets stolen and they can't afford to replace it. You know, so many things are connected with being homeless. It's awful that, you know, there are some homeless that prey on other homeless. And most homeless people are not a threat. They wouldn't hurt a fly. Some of them are addicted. They need addiction treatment, but you just about have to be rich to get addiction treatment. And it is a disease. It's a medical problem, not a just weak-willed person who just wants to stay drunk all the time. Well, if you're hopeless, then you're more likely to get addicted to something just because you feel helpless. You know, we shouldn't be so afraid of people who are depressed. We shouldn't be afraid of drug addicts. You know, yeah, sometimes they can be violent, but most drug addicts just get drunk and they don't want to bother anybody. They're just drowning their sorrows because they are depressed. If you treat the underlying depression, you can treat the addiction too, and, you know, people can come back from that. But they have to have hope. Most homeless people have lost that hope. They don't feel good about being out on the street. They are not likely to tell anybody. You might not know it. You might be in line next to them in the grocery store and never know that they're homeless. Because a lot of people can keep cleaned up for a while and they can get clothes. So, you know, it's not like you would obviously know that a person was homeless. I was homeless for a year.
Turn around when it
Nobody
is safe to do
knew
so.
I was homeless. My dad did. He wouldn't let me come home. He felt like he was doing tough love. But, you know. So, this is a thing that I was ashamed to give my address because I lived in a shelter for a year. Nowadays, you can't live in a shelter for a year. You have like 3 weeks to get another job, and there is some help to get a place, but those places are so few and underfunded that it's very unlikely that you're going to get a place. So you might get help from the government and still be homeless. It is such a pervasive problem, and because we tend to sweep our homeless under the rug, and we, my friend who has lived in Ringgold all her life had no idea there's a homeless camp off of 41, off the US 41. There is a huge homeless camp. I've never seen it, but I've heard about it. Every city in the country has a homeless camp. And if you think there's no cost to that, you don't know anything about finance or running a city, It is expensive to clean up these camps, and they go in every once in a while with a service who specializes in this because there's diseases. If you sleep on the ground, full time, you are gonna get parasites. You are gonna get diseases from just being homeless, not being able to bathe, and a lot of places close their showers and stuff to homeless people. That they don't want homeless people here. So, they can't keep clean. They can't get, if they get to a certain point of not having good hygiene, then maybe they can't even get clothes because nobody will let them in. I talked to this homeless guy in the Walmart parking lot. He was sleeping on the grass, and I knew that was a risk to go and talk to him, but I wanted to see what his story was. So I went and woke him up, and I said hi. I didn't touch him. I just talked to him softly until he woke up, and he turned out to be a very polite man. And he wasn't drunk or anything. He told us that he lost his place to live, and he ended up on the street, and he got beaten up by another homeless person, woke up in the hospital, and he had no place to go after he, woke up in the hospital. So he was back on the street, and he had been homeless for years. And this poor guy, he was very, very personable and very open with us. My daughter was there too. And we had been giving him a bucket of dry milk and a water bottle and a few things that we had in the cabinets. And we had a kitty litter container that was clean and sterile. We'd wiped it out really good, and it had just had litter, not used litter, so it was clean. We gave him that, and he says, "Oh, I've got an income." And the poor guy, his cell phone was stolen, but Best Buy would not talk to him about buying a new one, and he had money. This is a problem that the homeless have. Once you've been sleeping on the ground and you've got one change of clothes on you, and maybe your other stuff has been stolen, there you are. And you can't recover from that. Once you get to that point, what do? So here's this nice guy, and I asked him about the tent encampment over off 41. He says, "Oh, I know about that place, but I won't go there because there's violent people there." And since he's already been beaten up once, no wonder. So, the poor guy, and it was a hot day, very, very hot day. And here he is trying to get some shade under these trees in the Walmart parking lot, and he was able to, he had a water bottle, so he was able to go in Walmart and get something. But, I felt so bad for him. This could be somebody's dad, somebody's brother, somebody's son. And they usually are too ashamed to contact family, so they just disappear, and the family doesn't know if they're dead or where they are. And a lot of them die while they're on the street. We need to learn their stories. We need not to just turn a blind eye while people are not having homes to live in. And as for the argument that it's too expensive, well, it's too expensive to have to be cleaning up these homeless camps, and when they come through and they clean out these homeless camps, they take everything that the person owns and put it in a dumpster, basically. So here's in a garbage truck. So a poor person, they may have some bottles and cans saved up that they're going to take down to the recycling plant. And by the way, there are less recycling plants open because of the homeless that frequent them. So, how is this fair that they are taking everything that a person owns because some of the people are having trouble,
You have arrived
they
at your
can't get to a
destination.
bathroom, so sometimes they are using their place to live as a bathroom. It's sad, but, a lot of that is people who are drunk, and they get used to living that way. But if they provided a porta potty for people, if they allowed people to go in public restrooms, if they, and if they could go in a public restroom, they could clean up and maybe get a job. If they had a place to live, they could be contributing members of society instead of just a body on the grass that someday is going to be a dead body, because there are a lot of ailments that homeless people get from living on the street. And then, if they die, they may not be able to identify them. If somebody can't afford to go to the dentist, there are no dental records, and that is mostly how they identify people. So they could be dead for years and their relatives would never know. It's terrible. And I think that people ought to have a way of being remembered. There ought to be places that they can go to clean up themselves. The homeless camps wouldn't be as hard to clean up if people just had a place to go to the bathroom and a way to take a shower. I mean, come on. And if they had a lockable place, so maybe they wouldn't get their cell phones stolen, I mean, all of this is disenfranchising a whole group of people and criminalizing them when they're not criminals for the most part. A good many of them are mentally ill, and we should have mentally ill hospitals, facilities for them to live in. They shouldn't be on the street. They're helpless. And some are violent and should be in a facility for the public safety. So to put all the homeless in one drawer and say, oh, these are criminals and they're, no, they're not. Not all of them. Children aren't criminals. You know, families with children, this should not happen. So I'm saying, I don't care about the deficit. I want these people to be taken care of. And it'll cost money, but so does building mental health jails. I would much rather my taxpayer money go into helping the homeless with permanent housing, not temporary, permanent, so that they can have a place of their own, and a lot of them would be working if they had a way to do it, if they had a home base to operate from. Think of how different it would be. I mean, there's always going to be an element that wants to be homeless, that they're either doing it to save money or they're doing it to make a social statement, or they just aren't really mentally competent in deciding that they just want to be on the street. But, you know, the ones that want to live on the street, I think they should be allowed to. And I think that they should have a place to come in out of the elements if they want to. You know. Some of them are doing illegal things, and those people ought to go to jail. But the vast majority of homeless, they're not criminals. They're just down on their luck. And people don't want to believe that. They want to criminalize them. They want to say, oh, they're bad people, and that's why they're homeless. Well, no. I've known some people that were homeless that you wouldn't know it to look at them. You would never believe in your life that they had been homeless. But people tend to open up to me because I open up. I am honest about experiences I've had and things, and maybe I shouldn't be as open about it. But if you don't have a dialogue, things will never change. I think if more people like me spoke out and said, you know, yeah, I was homeless for a while, and I know how it is, and nobody should have to be. You know, why can't homeless have little carts like, there's a guy on one of the sites like GoFundMe. His name is Elvis Summers. He is an advocate for the homeless, and he builds little cart for homeless people. And he's had one fight after another with the city of Los Angeles because they don't want him giving the homeless these little carts that they can move if a policeman has a problem with where they've chosen to camp out. I don't know what the city fathers expect these poor homeless people to do. I think that government has a responsibility to homeless people in their district too. Why shouldn't these people have a voice in their government? Why shouldn't they have a place to live? And there are so many landlords getting rich. You know, the purpose of real estate should not be to get rich. It should be to be able to provide housing to people. All people, not just the wealthy, not just that 30%. Everybody should be able to afford a home. And everybody talks about it, but nobody does anything about it. We need a Congress who's going to decide that human life is important. But I've been on my soapbox for a while now. I'm gonna get off, and every time I say, well, I'm going to go on my live stream and I'm not going to get political, but, you know, disability is political. It really is. When you talk about disabled people, you also talk about the homeless, the incarcerated, because a lot of disabled people are incarcerated. Not because they're criminals, but because they look like a criminal, or they're acting funny, or something, and police tend to arrest them more than they do the general population. You would think that the police would be the protectors of the weak, and if somebody's in a wheelchair, you would think they'd be more likely to help them than somebody who looks normal and acts normal. But no, that's not the way it goes. People who are disabled are more likely to end up in jail, and without good cause. And if you don't believe me, go on National Coalition for the Homeless.org and look at their statistics. Who are the homeless? You owe it to yourself to find out who are the homeless. Are there homeless in my neighborhood? And maybe think about, what can I do to help them? Might be as simple as taking a bucket to a Walmart parking lot to give to a homeless man. Or helping out at a soup kitchen, or, volunteering someplace that deals with the homeless. The more people find out what the homeless are actually, instead of believing all the lies that the politicians say, then the more likely you are to think, well, this is outrageous. It shouldn't be happening in my country. And, I'm 62 years old and I've seen a lot, but we have more homeless people in this day and time than we have in my lifetime. And it's very sad because, it's usually in some place where people don't normally go. So you don't see the homeless. So it's easy to pretend, they don't exist. But not in my community, but yes, they do. Even in your community, there's a large population of the homeless. And if you ask around enough, you will find out that, yes, your community has one too. It's a big, shameful thing that we have the best of a lot of things in the world, but when it comes to taking care of our homeless people, our poor people, we are near the bottom. We incarcerate more people each year than communist China. Now that says a lot about us as a people right there. We are not very tolerant. And maybe we ought to be. It's easy to be political and say, oh, these people are robbers, rapers, murderers. But not necessarily. It may just be that we don't want to pay to help them. And that's sad because we are paying. Jail is expensive. The lack of mental health facilities means that, what are you going to do with all these mentally ill people who are not really able to be on their own? A lot of them end up in jail. And it's not fair because they can't think for themselves. They don't need to be blamed for their behavior. That, they need to be put in an institution that can care for them. But we have very few of those. So I hope I've given you some food for thought tonight. This is GrannyHandicap, and one of the things that I want to, I always leave you with something to think about. The thing I want to recommend to you is that, before you say, oh, I don't have any homeless, I don't know anybody homeless, I don't have any dealings with homeless people. Think about, what is your impression of what the homeless community is? And then I encourage you to go to homeless, look up homeless and whatever your community is, and just see if you don't find something about a tent city near you. sometimes seeing is believing. If you go to one of these places, be sure, for heaven's sakes, don't go at night. Go in the daytime and have somebody with you. Don't ask for trouble, But the best and safest way I've found to make contact with a homeless person is just go to your local Walmart and look in the parking lot and see if you don't see a homeless person. And just talk to them. You don't have to give them a hug. I recommend not doing that because you might catch something. I'm serious. But it's not their fault. It's the conditions under which they have to live. But talk to them. Just say, I've heard something about the homeless and I want to get your opinion because you are homeless. Just be polite and respectful, but go talk to a homeless person. If you find that you know one homeless person, it might change your attitude about them. Really. It's not like you think it is. And if you have a bad experience with a homeless person, look for another one, because they're not all that way. But most of my contacts with homeless people has been, they're very respectful, they're very polite, they're very humble people. And you can tell that they are kind of beaten down. I've seen a lot of them with drooped shoulders and kind of looking up at me like this. They aren't comfortable with being homeless, most of them. Go talk to a homeless person. Then tell me what you think. That's my advice to you. And, my show is about handicaps, but a large amount of homeless people are handicapped. So homelessness is an issue for disabled people. And Lord knows there's a lot of disabled people that you don't even know that they've got a disability until you talk to them a little bit, or until you have some prolonged contact with them, and then maybe you see it and maybe you don't. But a fourth of the country is disabled. If you count 4 people, one of them has a disability, a significant disability. Disability is common in our country, but the homeless has more of a proportion of disabled people than in the general population at large. So, read up. Don't take my word for it. Go do a Google search or whatever your favorite search engine is, and just read up on the homeless. But I encourage you to meet one homeless person before you judge me or you judge what I've been telling you about the homeless. Because it's a big problem in our country, and the politicians, they're just thinking bottom line money. It's going to cost money to solve this problem. It's going to cost money to solve any social problem or any financial problem. It's going to take money to get jobs going again. It's going to take money to keep the economy going. We've got a little bit of recovery going on, but it's not going to last unless we pump some money in where it's needed. It's a fact of life that government costs money. It's not cheap. But if you have problems like these, you have more crime, you have more people in prison, you're going to pay more taxes. So think about, why are we not building mental hospitals? Why aren't we taking people off the street who can't take care of themselves? These are questions that I'd like to see answered. So I encourage you, find out a little more about your local homeless problem and just see if it's like I say it is, because there's nothing like seeing it with your own eyes. There's nothing like talking to a homeless person and asking them, how did you get homeless? It doesn't hurt to care. The next time you see a person with an obvious disability, say hi. It's hard to cross that barrier. You think, oh, I'm going to bother them or make them think that they're being looked at or something. But really, just saying hi is friendly, and you might be surprised at how pleasant it is to just say hi to somebody who's down on their luck, or if they look depressed, Just make the world a better place. Smile at somebody. I do it all the time, and I'm always, really grateful that that's one thing I can do as a disabled person. I can smile at people and say hi and be friendly. So, this is Granny Handicap, and I'm going to get off my soapbox, and I'm going to go to Twitter, Twitter. I've been on Twitter today. You can tell. But I'm going to go to Twitch and turn off my live stream now. It's been a pleasure being with you. And let me see who's been with me. If I can get my mouse unpinned. Okay, I'm on I'm on Discord. I need to be here. Oh, Tyler Evansi. Thank you. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. So, let's see. And Lateraling, you are there. Hello, and thank you for being with me again. And I hope that y'all will tune in again. And until we see each other again, I won't be on tomorrow night because it's Sunday, but I'll be back Monday. Granny Handicap live stream is all about disabilities, and I would love to hear your opinions. So take a look at my social media connections if you want to. If you don't want to, that's fine. If you just want to watch, that's fine with me too. I'm very grateful for anybody who watches my broadcast. At least I'm not talking to myself. Y'all take care, and don't let your handicaps get you down. It's not hopeless. There's always things you can do to better your quality of life. So, this is Granny Handicap, aka Dennis Cole. I will see you Monday night. Good night. Have a pleasant weekend. Going over to Twitch.